Do you like books? I mean, really, really like books? Then you're in the right place. Each week, your host, Sam Hankin, interviews the best of today's top-selling authors and the up-and-coming superstars of modern literature. This is The Avid Reader. Here is your host, Sam Hankin.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to another edition of The Avid Reader, brought to you by Wellington Square Bookshop. Our guest today is Louisa Acampora, author of The Hundred Waters, published by Grove Atlantic and released in August with the help of Bill Clegg, who first introduced me to Lauren when we spoke, 7 years ago, about her debut collection of stories, The Wonder Garden. Today's book harkens back to those stories in some real ways and some other more mystical ways. And as Lauren says, there's some Easter eggs. In between those two books was The Paper Wasp, and we talked about that one too in 2019. So yeah, 2015, 2019, we're getting a little closer. She's writing more, faster. So Lauren has appeared in the Paris Review, Guernica, the New York Times Book Review, and Lit Hub, among other places. And The Hundred Waters, I kind of like how the title is alliterative with The Wonder Garden. The Wonder Garden, 100 Waters, Wonder Garden, 100 Waters. So anyway, that's just me. So Louisa's left Manhattan, her photography and her modeling career behind, to settle in the wealthy town of Nearwater, Connecticut, with her older architect husband, Richard, and their 12-year-old daughter, Sylvie. She's kind of turned off in a sense. Her ambitions, goals, and dreams are in a sort of neutral as she flows through a life of suburban contentment, cocktail parties, the hollow pock of tennis balls, country clubs, horses, swimming pools, reminiscent a bit of John Cheever. Lauren has compared to him a lot. In fact, after this book, I watched the movie again. Louisa is still beautiful, walks in Christian Louboutin, a slingback Ferragamo sandals. She takes photographs with her Leica. As she goes upstairs to bed, she sees the familiar crack of light under Richard's closed office door, from which she can softly hear the sonorous words of Kierkegaard and Nietzsche. Sylvie's door is ajar. She sleeps silently. We're worried about her. Across town in a dwelling as sumptuous and sound as Louisa's, both designed by Richard, Heinrich and Agatha sleep, and Gabriel does whatever Gabriel does at night. Further in, we begin to realize what Gabriel does, as Sylvie and Louisa do as well, to an extent, I guess. People die, things change. And in this fashion, Lauren creates art from something as mundane as, say, Louisa creates art, and Lauren does too, from something as mundane as, say, a photo of a woman's earlobe or an old man asleep on a train. In the end, without knowing how it happened, we realize that we're done. The book's over. One reviewer said she felt as if she'd been holding her breath. And now I'm lucky enough to pry into it again with Lauren's help. So Lauren, first of all, welcome. Thanks for doing this for the third time, putting up with me. So what is it about La La Land and you? I mean, It is kind of you to a certain extent.
Yeah, first of all, it's so nice to actually see your face for a change. I just want to say that, right?
Likewise.
Yeah. I mean, you're such a good interviewer. I know this from the previous times that we've spoken on the phone, but somehow sitting here with you like this really underlines that. Just hearing you talk about the book was, it's really nice. Thank you. Yeah. You have I like what you said, people die, things change. So what is it about La La Land? That is a great question. Well, to begin with, I grew up in the la-la-iest land of them all in Connecticut. And it was a wonderful place to grow up. I grew up in Darien, Connecticut. And just the beautiful houses and properties well kept, and everyone well turned out, and wanting for nothing. I rode horses as a child. That's what you do in Fairfield County, Connecticut. And as I remember even as a kid, maybe Sylvie's age, 12 years old, riding on the polo field at the hunt club where I rode horses, and daydreaming, as I was wont to do, about becoming a writer one day. And I always thought to myself, someday I would like to write about this place. And as an only child, I spent a lot of time wandering around, actually in the woods behind my house, and making up stories, just sort of getting lost on purpose, coming out at like going all the way through the woods to the end, and then coming out onto some other road, and I didn't even know where I was, and looking around for a street sign, trying to orient myself, and then finding my way home back through the woods. And in the meantime, coming across artifacts of nature, like turtle shells or mouse skulls, and then sometimes artifacts of teenagers who had been there, beer bottles, underwear, things like that. And then imagining what goes on at night and what goes on beyond these manicured, like the woods were this sort of dark block beyond the manicured property lines dividing them, coming in between. And I was always really fascinated with that. So on the one hand, the polished surfaces that we see in a beautiful suburban town that is keeping up appearances, and also the wildness and the darkness. That's a theme I return to. And it's something, you mentioned John Cheever, it's something I find in his work and appreciate. And the minute I moved back to the suburbs in 2009, I had been in New York City, much like Louisa, for a while, and came back up to the suburbs, this time in Westchester. And the first thing, I had a baby, the first thing I did, those nighttime nursing sessions with her, was I put on the little light and I just read all of Cheever's stories, cover to cover. I had read a few of them, but I read all of them. And like, here I am, let's go.
Yeah, like I said, I just watched it and I was looking at Burt Lancaster, and he was so handsome, and the dialogue's slightly stilted, it's like the old movies, but just the idea of it was amazing.
I've never seen the movie.
Well,
I think I'm a little nervous to see the movie.
Yeah, you might be.
Yeah, because that story means so much to me. I don't know. When a book or a story is dear to you, you're afraid.
No, then don't see it, because it's not. It's
a classic though. One day I will.
Yeah. What's interesting about your explanation just now of La La Land? You never mentioned a person.
A person?
No.
I mean, it's more the sense of, I suppose I'm talking more from bird's eye view of La La Land.
Well, who are these people? And in the book, like in the other books too, I think I asked this question back in the Wonder Garden. Are they good? Are they bad? The only bad guy for really being bad is Fox.
Mm-hmm.
When I was little, my veterinarian was Dr. Fox. Yeah.
You want to know what else is weird?
What?
My dog's veterinarian is also Dr. Fox.
Seriously?
Yeah. He's right here. He can tell you all about Dr. Fox. He doesn't like him at all. He's a lovely vet. He's a great guy, but yeah, no. Isn't that funny? I think it's hilarious. Dr. Fox, you had the same.
I have a couple of weird ones. The doctor who does my colonoscopy is Dr. Astroff. And my ex-wife's gynecologist was Dr. Menzies.
No.
Yep.
Sometimes it feels as if there's no choice for these people.
I know.
Yeah, they just go with what's been written for them. That's too much, Dr. Fox. Yeah, but Roy Fox, referring to the wealthy estate owner who collects exotic animals, and he's the retired CEO of this oil company who was responsible. His company was responsible for a major oil spill, and he just never really seemed to have done any penance for that. But it's funny. I actually have written a separate short story about Roy Fox from his point of view, and in his mind, he's not a bad guy. Right. Nobody thinks they're a bad guy. Nobody thinks they're bad. They think that they're doing the best they can. They're all well intentioned, and I hope that comes through. I mean, of course, from Gabriel's point of view, from Sylvie's point of view, Roy Fox is he's the wicked villain, and he is. I mean, the way he behaves and what he does, he's just oblivious or in denial, and so many characters are, and that's what interests me about people. The sort of the blind spots that we all have. We all think that we're all the hero of our own stories.
Yeah, that's why everybody does the best they can, kind of.
Yeah, we think we are, or we rationalize it in complicated ways to ourselves. But those blind spots, those areas of denial, I like to call it like good intentions gone out of control or spiraling downward. Those are the characters I really like. Yeah.
Oh, spiraling reminds me of Nautilus, and Nautilus reminds me of their house.
Yeah.
Explain why it was like a Nautilus, because that's hard, you know, it's hard to imagine, but you do it well, but it's still hard to imagine.
I think it would be really hard to build.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. Like it almost defies gravity or any kind of structural, I don't know, stability. But I did want to make it this really, aspirational, for lack of a better word, this idea of a perfectly transparent, perfectly sort of symmetrical spiraling cylinder just set in the middle of a green, like a blank green field. So exposed, so vulnerable, so hubristic. And that's, and also to me, it is it represents Richard's character to a certain extent, that he's, that the house is beautiful, but it's kind of antiseptic. It's a little dry, and his character to me is, ironically trying to be shelter, trying to hide from the dangers of the world or protect his family from the dangers of the world. And yet he's built this house for them that's just completely exposed to all the elements. So he's conflicted. I mean, people seem to not understand Richard. People seem to be, unsure about him, but I really like Richard as a character. To me, he's a study in contrasts for sure. He's this sort of agitated spirit that's restless and looking for philosophical answers, and just deeply attached to and worried about his family, but also not connecting with them either. So it makes sense to me that he's the kind of person who would build a house like that. I don't know if this is making sense at all, but it's he's a contradictory guy.
Yeah, and the thing about it is, authors don't like to hear this generally, but he's somewhat two-dimensional, but he's two-dimensional on purpose.
Yeah.
But then things pop out. Obviously, he's worried about Sylvie and the phone and all that. But then when he's reading in his room, the light underneath, he's reading about things that say man is both a beast and an angel, and about anxiety. And if you don't have anxiety, there's something less of you. And, he's reading these in our most famous and well-known philosophers. And I've always thought, and I assume you do too, that human beings have that combination, which is why we're so interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. He finds, I don't want to say meaning in his anxiety, but yeah, I mean, he's a very restless character, very constantly struggling with quietly, but not sharing himself, strangely.
It's funny, other than the end, and I got to stay away from spoilers, which sometimes I don't, but we could always edit them out now. But other than at the end, it's funny, the only time he gets mad is when he goes back to the back of Heinrich's house.
Oh, yeah.
They haven't done what I wanted them to do. And that's the only time he really pops out with an emotion.
It's true. Yeah, they didn't cut back the trees. You can't see my work. Right. Yeah. There's that little bit of arrogance that comes out, for his work to be seen. But yeah.
Well, I'm not like Terry Gross, and that now. I'd never ask, oh, so what's your book about? But we always seem to come around to enough of it, don't you think?
Yeah.
So, but I will. So if you go through the characters, I mean, you basically have you have this family unit, and then you have another family unit, but you also have these characters that inform, at least in Louisa and Sylvie's case, why the book is there, actually. So let's talk first about Sylvie and what happened to her that has turned her in from one kind of girl into another.
Yeah, Sylvie is becoming aware, she's at the age where she's becoming aware of the outside world being not a safe place like she had always thought it was. And I think there's that moment, especially for a girl growing up in a place like Nearwater, where everything is soft and sheltered. And but she has a young friend who she rides horses with, or had ridden horses with, just a couple of years older than she is, who sadly passes away from leukemia. And the community is able to piece it together that that these number of cases of cancer have been popping up in the neighboring school district where the girl attended school, that the school district had made a deal with a construction company to build a sports field for them, with the and then as long as the construction company is allowed to bury its debris underneath this field. So that's the trade-off. They'll build it for free and they bury the debris. This actually happened to in a district not far from my own, and I have a friend who had appendix cancer because of it, and a bunch of the students and teachers had come down with the diagnoses, and there was a linkage to this deal they had made with the construction company. And so Sylvie becomes aware of this, and more focused on the environmental degradation that's happening around us. And I think that the 12-year-olds that I know, and I know quite a few, having a daughter who just turned 13, are very, very much concerned about climate change and about environmental degradation. And they feel as if it's their job to do something about it. So much emphasis has been put on the new generation coming up and making change and activism. And some of these kids are truly anxious and depressed about it. And, clinically so. So I thought Sylvie would be, especially at this age, deeply impacted by what happened to a peer her own age, and looking for someone to blame too. And someone like Roy Fox with his oil spills and keeping of these animals captive is kind of the perfect. He seems like the enemy to her.
What made me sad was when they pick her horse. I mean, they pick her horse.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like, why? It's like, I mean, I understand why, but it was like, that's a shame, It's a shame that they do, Anyway, this is where this
the horse is fine. No animals are harmed in my book.
And this is where I lose potential buyers of your book because no one knows what the hell I'm talking about.
The horse is used as the horse of volunteers as an art project, but the horse is fine. It's not hurt.
No. Well, if we switch to Louisa, the way that the parallels I see with Sylvie is that Louisa was and still is beautiful, but she was this beautiful model. She was a great photographer. But although the one review says her photographs are sterile, which that's okay. But then she puts her life on hold too. She changes because the things that she dreamt of, they harken back to her in terms of previous relationships, but she's lost, other than what she sees in her closet when she goes into her closet. She's lost all that desire to a certain extent. She's given over her life to something that's less than she thought she ever would.
Yeah. And she hasn't really come to terms with that completely. Those pieces in her closet, speaking of artifacts, those remain as these, there's remnants almost of her previous life. And she's always looking for some reason to wear them, to bring them back out and sort of inhabit that old self, even just momentarily. Just going to a suburban party, she puts on her, her high design, backless cocktail dress. Everybody else is wearing like Ralph Lauren sheath dresses or something, kind of stands out. But I think that she comforts herself by knowing that those pieces are still there, and she could still step into them if, you know, if she needs to.
Do you ever wear slingback Ferragamo sandals?
Oh gosh, no. No. I shop at thrift stores.
When I told my wife about that, she goes, she must really have narrow feet.
Yeah, oh my gosh. Yeah, no. I'm 5 feet tall also.
Well, you know, you could raise your height by 4 inches with those.
Yeah, that's true. Maybe I should get some Ferragamo in my life.
Or if you want to spend more money. Well, I don't know if they're the same. The Christian Louboutin, which she also wears too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Which I like the red underside of the soles.
Yeah, those are cool. Yeah, those are cool. It was fun to live my fashion dreams through Louisa, my unattainable fashion goals.
Yeah, and you describe the clothes very well, which actually adds a lot of color, literally and figuratively, to the book.
I like her. I love the yellow dress she wears to the memorial. That's
the one I was thinking of. Yeah,
with the pleats. Yeah, I have such a picture in my mind of that dress.
Yep, me too. And the funny thing is how she looks in her closet and she thinks, you know, can I pull this off still?
Yeah. To a memorial.
Yeah. Well, the memorial's kind of weird too, because it's not really a memorial, and it wasn't ever meant to be.
All right, it's like a party, right?
Yeah, and then you have I don't know what, you know, I was going to ask you a silly question like what is art, but I don't know whether red cheap plastic balls on the floor that people stand in I would consider art. And I think that's a question you ask too.
Yeah, I think Louisa has that question for sure, standing there picking it up, like what the heck. Yeah, I mean, I often have that question and so does my husband, who's an artist, you know, like,
oh yes, right.
Yeah. And my father too, who was an artist, and he, you know, he was from another generation, but he was a figurative painter and came up at the same time that abstract expressionism was really hitting the scene, and he was just completely exasperated by it.
You know, William Saroyan said that art is anything looked at with particularity.
I like that a lot.
And that's what Sylvia does, you know, that's what she does when she takes pictures of laying in bed, takes pictures of her thigh or the earlobe.
I think that's right. I mean, if you put a frame around almost anything and look at it with particularity, who's to say what, you know, that's not art?
No, it's like after I read that, sometimes when I'm at a stoplight, I'll look in the median and I'll see a little shard of glass. And if you look at it very carefully, it becomes beautiful.
Yeah.
So does that make it art? I don't know.
It's the teenage boy in American Beauty. Do you remember that movie?
Yeah.
And he videotapes the plastic bags floating and talks about how beautiful that is.
Which goes back to the character we haven't spoken about. Gabriel.
Yeah. That's Gabriel. Yeah.
So Gabriel's 18, but he's the book pivots around him. And why?
Well, stranger comes to town. That's one of the main storylines, right? It's either a character goes on a journey or a stranger comes to town. So here's the stranger who's coming to shake everything up. He's I think he just for people listening, you know, he's 18. He's been in Nearwater. He comes from this aristocratic Austrian family that's just moved to Nearwater and are Richard's clients. And he has been, and they are not only aristocratic family, but major art collectors from Austria with their own Kunsthaus there, and a collection of their own in Nearwater. And so he comes from immense privilege and artistic background, but he wants to shake up the old ways. He wants to, you know, as young people do, rebel against, you know, his parents' tastes, and also the sort of complacency that he finds in this town, suburban American town. And he's been expelled from the high school already because of his activist art. He spray painted a mural on the side of the high school. It's a depiction of the Last Supper, but instead of Jesus in the middle, it's the President of the United States, and he's handing hamburgers out to a bunch of animals who are sitting around him. And that's, to me, I had so much fun thinking about, his teenaged ideas of provocative art. And, they are provocative, but they're also sort of funny and, in a teenage kind of overblown way. So he's taken it upon himself to wake up the residents of Nearwater, through his artwork. He wants to bring them, awareness of their complicity in the environmental catastrophe and the calamity that's coming their way, which he sees, climate change. And again, it's putting installations around town, and he meets Louisa and Sylvie and finds use in both of them. So Louisa, being the director of the local town art center, he approaches her and asks if he can, first he says, can I have a gallery show? And she's like, who are you? No. And then he says, can I, have this residency program that you're beginning? Can I, be the first resident? And she allows him to take up residency in this little cabin that's on the art center property and, do his installation work there privately, and doesn't tell anyone about it. And Gabriel also pulls Sylvie in as a sort of apprentice, as a helper for his own artwork. And he and she see eye to eye in a way on this, on the necessity of waking people up through art.
Yeah, and the other thing about him, well, you got that side of him, and the other side of this sexual charge from the first moment you see him. And it affects both Louisa and Sylvie. And but at the same time, it's funny because in the visceral way he affects both of them, like I said, electric. That's over. But then the good thing about the book, one of the many good things about the book, is that you don't have to really, it's like in a movie with Rock Hudson and Doris Day. They close the door and you know what happens when they close the bedroom door, but there's no need to go into it really,
Right. Yeah.
But there's a scene, against a tree, and she says, do you have a girlfriend?
Oh, who's Sylvie later? Yeah. Oh, later on. Yeah. That's it. Pretty much. Yeah. Right. Yeah. But, with Sylvie, I mean, I don't know. I want to be, I imagine, and I don't know if people are reading it differently, but that the relationship, although there's always the sort of the concern that that Gabriel, being 18 and Sylvie only 12, that he may, take inappropriate advantage of her. But through the book, and tell me if you read it this way, it was meant to always remain platonic between them. Was it? Did it read that way to you?
I did read it that way, but okay. I also read it that he in fact did take advantage of her.
Of Sylvie? Well, yeah, but not sexually.
No, but yes. Yeah. So, and okay, well, that's the question too, is, he comes in, and you pronounce it Deidre, the assistant? Yeah. Deidre. Yeah. So Deidre's there, he comes in to the art gallery, and he's incredibly provocative, but nonetheless, Louisa still, oh God. All right, well, we have to go back to Xavier. Yeah. Because it's the same kind of feeling that she once had, and she misses being young. That's part of it. So talk about Xavier. Yeah. What he was, what he became. Right.
Well, Xavier was Louisa's boyfriend when she was in the city. And he was a pretty successful painter, and really, running with the downtown art scene and staying up all night, and, a lot of drugs and sort of sexual entanglements with everybody. And she tried to keep up with him, basically, Xavier. And it just got to the point where she couldn't, she hit her limit of what she was able to do. And, he had encouraged her though in her artwork and said, if you have to commit yourself to your art, is to really give up this idea of stability. And that was his idea, I think, of living the art life, the bohemian life, and not be attached to stability or family or predictability, but to live a little bit, live wild. And she tried, and she just couldn't hang. So they ended up, that the relationship ended, and she went looking for stability and ended up with Richard and going back to the suburbs. And now she, at one point, she goes down to the city early on in the book and sees Xavier. And there's this very, charged but awkward meeting that they have in her life in the suburbs. He's just sort of gone off the deep end with drugs and is really unwell. And she sees that. And I don't know if it's giving away too much, but he ODs during the course of the book, and that's the memorial that she's going down to in the city later on. And she's very she's really affected by his death, and it feels like the death of her youth has died too with him permanently. And Gabriel's appearance in her life really brings back a lot of that, I won't say regret necessarily, but nostalgia for what her life was like and what she gave up in New York.
Yeah, but there's two ways of looking at it. Xavier might be like, it's better to burn out than to fade away.
Yeah.
The 27 Club or whatever you want to call it. Oh,
right.
That reminds me. So when they're staying up all night and you talk about Nick Drake, were you thinking of the song Pink Moon?
No, I was just thinking about Nick Drake. And speaking of the 27 Club, I don't know how old he was, but he was really young too, 30s maybe. But yeah,
no, he was younger.
And
that reminded me too, because then I'm way older than you when you talk about Iggy Pop. And the first time I saw Iggy Pop he was still called Iggy Stooge, and it was the Stooges, and the song, the eponymous song of their first album was 1969, which is when I went to Woodstock. And so I was surprised you brought him into it, because he's another one that's, you would think that he would have burnt out.
Oh, I know. He's made of steel. I mean, literally, he's made of steel. But the book that the thing that the song that started this whole book was The Passenger.
Really? Well, that reminds me then. Well, first of all, show the cover of the book, because I always forget to do that. Do you have it there?
I do. Yeah,
because I always say this, but let me look. So, because I only have the ARC. One says, don't judge a book by its cover, but every single person who comes into my bookstore judges a book only by its cover, unless they're looking for something. And that's why publishers generally do it. But I will add, and the cover, well, first of all, when Gabriel changes his name to Hundred Waters, which is the title, and then you have the town called Nearwater. So what is it about water, and what is it about this cover that includes not only water and there's swimming pools? Yeah, it's such a cool cover.
Isn't it neat?
I can't even explain it.
Yeah, it's hard to describe. It's actually a three-dimensional art piece. It's by an artist named Gregory Euclid, or Euclidy, I'm not sure how to pronounce it, but what he does is he paints, he crumples up, he paints on some sort of thick paper, and he crumples it up, and affixes. He has this little cut up, I don't know if you can tell from the screen, but cut up almost like snowflake style pieces of paper.
Right.
And affixes those, and then three-dimensional little trees, and just creates this three-dimensional fantasia that's, to me, it just says so much. The art director who came up with it and who is just a genius, because it adds something to the book. Yeah, it reflects what's in the book, but adds something in a way as well. And it talks about environmental catastrophe and art, and trying to make sense of it all and add beauty to something that's damaged. And I don't know. And also I imagine the artist, it seems to me like the hand of a big artist who is trying to alter something to make it beautiful, but is on the cusp of ruining it.
So when you saw this, you go, wow.
Yeah, I loved it.
Yeah, so do I. And this is exactly what I'm talking about. This is, you can't not pick it up. And that's why publishers do the covers, because artists.
That's what I like to hear. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's because they don't want authors to do the covers.
Yeah.
And sometimes they don't want authors to do the titles.
I always try. Oh, believe me, I try to do my own covers every time. They're like, please stop.
Yeah. So, okay, what is it? I mean, the Wonder Garden, the Paper Wasp. So you come up with this title, The 100 Waters. And at first you go, wait a minute. So why is it The 100 Waters? Why did he change his name? Why is it Nearwater?
Yeah. Well, the 100 Waters, Gabriel, he changes his name. His name is Gabriel Steiger, and he changes his name to Aussteiger. Aussteiger means dropout in German. And so he wants to be called Gabriel Aussteiger. And it means more than dropout. It's Steiger means climber in German, and Aussteiger is like non-climber. So he thinks that is more reflective of himself. The artist that he's obsessed with is another Austrian artist,
yeah.
Hundred Wasser, right. And Hundred Wasser changed his name to Hundred Wasser, which in German means the 100 Waters. So I think that, to me, the 100 Waters it's talking about floods. The flood myth has a big part of this book, and floods are happening in the world as the book takes place. There are floods in the Midwest during the time of the book. The climate change is causing floods more and more often, and Gabriel is fixated on this idea of the flood myth and the ark, and so many of his pieces are about rounding up animals to save them, to try to save nature, try to save the innocents, which are the animals, as opposed to the humans, which are culpable. And he sees climate change almost as a divine intervention to come and wipe humanity off the face of the earth and start again. So the 100 Waters to him is the coming calamity. And so I think of it as not only, and for the book, not only the calamity, environmental calamity coming, but the calamity that's coming personally to the characters of this book, Louisa in particular.
He talks about, and I feel exactly the same way. You have your little blue bin that you throw your used empty wine bottles in, and plastic.
Pat yourself on the back.
Because this is meaningless, and it really is. It doesn't reduce. What kind of bottle are you drinking out of?
Swell. Yeah, it's supposed to look like wood. I'm sure that it. Yeah.
Oh, I know that. We sell them at the bookstore.
Yeah, I love this bottle. It's not really wood though.
No, the funny thing is that there's certain you've done this through all your work, and I mentioned it in the introduction because I stole it. The hollow pock, and you hear it when you say it. And the other one is, beneath all these, the bones, like in the cemetery, and then the tree and its wretched pleading as its branches go up, things like that. Those are the slow hole of night. There's phrases like that authors, and I'm not complimenting you, but the really good authors use those phrases because it's like the whole is more than the sum of the parts. So there's all kinds of meaning, like the hollow pock. You can imagine the entire country club. You know exactly what it's like. You know what the tennis women are, the tennis bracelets, what they do there, everything. And it's just, where do you come up with those phrases? Like the slow hole of night is a really good one.
Thanks. I don't know.
They pop into your head.
Yeah, I mean, with writing, it's always just trying to get it, trying to capture it. How how else do I put it? I mean, to write a sentence, it's trying to put into words this feeling, this intangible feeling of being out. Like, I think that's when Louisa's standing outside her house on the phone with her, with the art dealer friend, right? And Slow Hole of Night opens. It's trying to just figure out what words can capture that feeling, and also as efficiently as possible without using 55 words. So a trial and error. I started writing this book 20 years ago, so
mackerel.
Yeah, holy mackerel is right. So but it was in and out of the proverbial drawer for all those years, and I was writing other things in between, and I would always bring it back and look at it again with fresh eyes after however many years, and rewrite the thing and change the character, change the tense, change the sections, reorder it all. And I guess just, grooming the language over those years and reducing it and slimming it down. I mean, it's not a long book. People are like, this took you 20 years. It's like 200 pages. What's wrong with you? But a lot of it is trimming the fat and getting it down, just getting it specific.
Yeah, it's like the other phrase that really caught me was when she says, the forested Austrian childhood she never had. It's like, wow, because I do that all the time. You flesh out this life that you never have, but what it would have been like. And that harkens to a lot of things that happen in the book. There's all this stuff that could have happened, might have happened, would it have been better, instead of instead of settling for Richard. Did she settle?
She's lucky to have him. I mean, she knows that. And I think she's aware every day that she is, and that, she was really fortunate to land where she did, especially looking back and seeing what happened to, the people who didn't. But of course, there's always that, whatever we choose, there's always all of the networking paths that we missed out on, or, you have to just choose. So, and going back and seeing Angelica, her old rival, her art rival, who just stuck with it. And she was just stubbornly attached to that life, and she made it. She owns her own apartment. She's got the whole floor now. She's got all her, interesting art friends, and she's still showing and still smoking, but she's alive, and she's earned it. So
it's funny because Louisa, like, when they see each other at first, she's still the same bitch, but then she feels she's gotten better, she's nicer, but then the gift she gives her is the one red ball in the bell jar. And
I know
how ironic it is that she's basically saying you're in prison. The one time I didn't like Louisa, and I don't know why you did this, it's when she's bothering Sylvie right before Sylvie's going to ride. And she specifically asks about Gabriel. What did you do in the basement with him?
Yeah, what bad timing, right?
And she says it's bad timing. It's the only time she's really not mean, but it's like kind of mean.
Yeah, I think it's been gnawing at her, thinking what happened, and also I think she feels like as a mother she needs to check, although she kind of doesn't want to know if something happened. I think that
but she could have waited till after.
She could have waited. Yeah. And what that comes from, and that it's funny, I actually added, having written a lot of this book before I was married and had my own kid, that part where she becomes aware of the bad timing, I added after I had my own child, because I can tell, from experience, that my mouth opens at the most inopportune moments. And I think, what's wrong with me? Why am I bringing this up now? But sometimes I don't know what it is about parents, or at least me, that is just lousy at timing sometimes.
Well, the one thing you said also, which reminded me of my kids. Well, I have like two sets. Michael's 42, Katie's going to be 40, and then Samantha's 25, and Annie's 21. And with Katie always reminds me, every night I read her 2 books. Every night. For her whole childhood. And then I realized with Samantha and Annie, I didn't read as much. And that's one of the things that Louisa kind of regrets. But it seems to me like I bet you read a lot to your daughter if she still wants
we still do. We still do. Yeah. Thankfully. Yeah.
What do you read her?
You know, we've been reading Little House on the Prairie, the whole series. She loves it, and those were my favorites growing up. So we're now on, I think we're on the 5th book now. So every night I read, you know, a chapter of it to her.
When there's kids that, you know, I like at the bookstore, I start them on stuff, and so like I start mailing them out. I put it in brown paper and twine, which is the only way I think you should give a book to anybody.
That's nice.
And so like I'll give them a series of unfortunate events.
Oh yeah. Oh yes.
Then I wait a week and I send them the next one.
Yeah, that's about the right amount of time. Yeah, they're probably a little disconcerted at the beginning, just like my daughter was at the beginning of that. She's like, I don't know if I like this. Like, keep going. She keeps going. She's like, okay, now I can't stop.
Yeah.
That's great. Yeah, that's a great series.
Yeah, that's the cool thing about having the bookstore is I don't take it for granted, but I have the luxury of giving things to people.
That's so nice. And I love the brown paper and twine too.
Yeah, I started that because when I was a kid, there was this bookstore called Leary's down on 9th and Market in Philadelphia. And that's how they wrapped their books. And I realized, that's pretty much, you got to do that. You got to find the right kind of twine too. I'm obsessive about it.
You have the kind that's on the cookie boxes, the red and white string. You could do that.
Oh no, the women who work for me do that. I just do the ones it's a giant cone of twine, and you just pull off pieces and cut it. And I always cut it too short, always. And then I go, I'm gonna cut it really long this time, and it's still too short. This is what I do. This has nothing to do with selling your book. I do this all the time. It's irritating, isn't it?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, and Richard's worried about her and the phone and all that. But you bring up, is it this, the person that caused those 2 girls to stab their friend and almost kill her? Is it the Slender Man?
Yeah. I mean, that doesn't. Oh, you mean that what he's afraid of? No, it was what the heck was the name of that weird art thing? There was a Momo or something like that. It was I know I sound like I'm 85 right now. It's like what's that?
Don't say that to someone who's 70.
You're not 85, but I just, you know what I mean. Do you ever catch yourself being like, it's the Momo, or it's the one he's the guy in the movie with the thing.
Yeah,
right?
Well, everything's a meme now. My stepdaughter Lorelai, who's 14, it's like, it's a meme. I go, okay, a meme is something, but not everything can be a meme.
Oh my gosh, everything is a freaking meme these days. I know. It's crazy. I can't keep up with the memes. They're none, and they're crazy. They're nuts. Anyway, no, this was like this happened maybe 5 years ago. There was this really, really creepy sculpture that I think some Japanese artist made.
Yeah. Yes.
You know what I'm talking about, with like the claws and the beak and the really like hollow, empty eyes. And there was this, I'm pretty sure it was an urban legend that it was popping up on the kids' videos and like telling them to like kill themselves or something like that.
Yeah, I can see the picture in my mind because I remember I looked it up specifically for the same reason that Richard does.
Yeah, nightmarish. Like giving me nightmares just to see that thing. It's a great piece of art for that reason.
And that's kind of the art in the book. Mm-hmm. So the phone, what it does. Have you ever been down, like go out to a restaurant and there's a husband and wife and their 2 kids and all 4 of them are on their devices?
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm. Yep. Sure.
That's like, your book doesn't dwell on that, but I dwell on it. It just like, I want to go over and say, just put them all away. Just put them in my daughter, Katie, when she has a party, she has a wicker basket by the front door and she makes everyone put their phones in it before the party starts.
That's great.
I know. Yeah,
that's the way to do it. We've been bringing our child up Amish. Well, trying. She's pretty good. I mean, she loves Little House on the Prairie. She authentically, genuinely loves these books. And I think we've been sort of seeding that. And I mean, knock on wood, it's amazing. My kid is 13 and she still doesn't want a phone. So
I don't know. I always say to,
fingers crossed.
Wait till she becomes, wait till she becomes a teenager. Till she's sneaking out of the house like Sylvie does, you know? Those
Yeah.
things will happen. They will happen.
I'd rather, well, I shouldn't put this on the internet because she's going to hear it, but I almost would rather she sneaks out of the house than goes in, down these rabbit holes in the phone in her own room. I think those are scarier.
Yeah, you probably shouldn't have said that.
No, just delete that. It's okay. She knows. I think she knows. She knows.
Oh.
I'm crazy about the phone. I'm sure I drive everybody insane talking about it. And I had to, pull. So that's me talking through Richard about the fears of the phone, for sure. I channeled a lot of my anxieties through him. My father was an anxious father, and now I'm not anxious. I think I was kind of in between Louisa and Richard. Louisa's a little too laissez-faire and Richard is too overprotective. But I get both of their points of view for sure.
Well, yeah, to ask the stupidest question, since you just brought it up, is who are you?
Who am I?
Yeah.
I don't know. That's why I write.
So that means, like everyone asked, is this autobiographical? Are any of the characters you? But I mean, but you started it 20 years ago when you were 6 years old.
Yeah, I know. I was only 5 there. No, I mean, I think every writer would agree with this. Every character has some aspect of us in them. None of them are completely me, and none of them are devoid of me. So, which is cool. You get to sort of take whatever aspects you want to amplify. You can amplify. Richard is my anxiety amplified, and Louisa is my, narcissistic, regretful youth amplified, and Gabriel is my idealist, arrogant teenager amplified, and Sylvie is my nervous child amplified. Yeah, so I'm all of them. Yeah.
Where you are now, do you belong to a country club? Do you play tennis?
No, I don't think I would. It's funny, I actually went a couple of winters ago. I was invited to a paddle tennis tournament.
Oh yeah, big deal now. Yeah,
like the winter tennis, which we have to wear a coat and and play when it's 20 degrees out. And I'd never done it before, and I went, and it was actually a lot of fun. It was fun, but I thought, I mentioned to someone, they asked me what I was working on, and I said, yeah, I'm working on this novel. I said, as a matter of fact, a paddle court has appears in it. But I've never actually been on a paddle court, and that was my first time. So no, I'm not in a country club. I don't play tennis or anything like that, but yeah, I mean, I've got my friends who do. And yeah, I did play tennis as a kid, and my parents did join a sort of the low end country club in Darien that was more accessible than most of them.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's such a cliche now, but I've always been I would never belong to a club that would allow me in.
Yeah.
I just always have felt that way.
Yeah,
and I've always felt that clubs are generally designed so we can keep you out. We're in, but we can keep you out. And
yeah, it's gross. Yeah. But I'm lucky that I live in a town, and part of the reason we chose this town is because it has a very affordable town pool. It's like $100 to join for the summer, and it's beautiful, and it's just a town pool, and there's a tennis court if you want it, and there's a pool where the kids play, and that's great.
It's funny, in your book, even for Louisa, the summer seems to last forever, but it doesn't last forever. Now it's on June 1st, I always go, okay, I'm going to concentrate on enjoying every moment and making this last. And now it's October, and it's
October. I know.
And it's just when you get to be my age, it just goes faster. I mean, people have told you this. It just goes faster and faster and faster. But when you're a kid, when you're Sylvie's age, it does stretch forever. And you remembered that too. Yeah,
it does.
And there's that feeling in the book, that summer, it seems like it stretches forever.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a very late, to me, that sort of that late summer book. It came out August 23rd.
Right. I meant to say that. Yeah.
Yeah, it was, which is, at first I thought, what a miserable time for a book to come out. Everybody's on vacation. But then I thought, well, of course it should come out then, because that's the moment that the book turns on, that sort of late August, summer, the end of summer, beginning of whatever's next.
Yeah. There's lots of things in your book to me that are very evocative. And that's another thing. It's like the idea of the smell of burning leaves.
Yeah.
It's hard to say that in words. Well, I just said it, but it doesn't work when you just say the smell of burning leaves. You have to do it the way you do it. Yeah, you have to say it in words that don't mean the smell of burning leaves, but
yeah,
it's poetry.
Give me 20 years, I'll think of it. Exactly. Anybody could think of it in 20 years. What 4 words, what 3 words could capture that? I don't know.
Well, Burning Leaves is a good novel title, but I bet it already has been used.
Probably. I think that's another thing with time. Every single book title has been used. Have you noticed that?
Yeah, and you're allowed to. You know, there's no copyright. You can use any title.
You can use them again. Yeah, you reuse them. That's true.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah.
Well, have we talked about everything?
No. But we could talk all day, I have no doubt.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, so I guess the last question I would ask is, well, what would it be? Well, a good question would be, if you want to answer, did you ever have a Gabriel?
Did I ever have a Gabriel? And like, what do you mean?
Yeah, you know what I mean.
As a child?
Not as a child, no, but when you were of an age where you were in relationships, was there ever someone like Gabriel for you, where it's just...
Yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah. I mean, no one specifically, but from when I was young, from when I was I guess teenager and upward, there were always boys and young men who were like that to me, who seemed really charismatic and just somehow just fascinating to me in a way that, do you ever, somebody, if you ever known somebody who everybody's always talking about, like when they're not there, and you feel like the conversation always comes back to this person, and you're always like, why are we just talking about this one person? What is it about them that makes us always want to talk about them? There have been in my life a number of, and they're always young men who are like that people find themselves talking about or trying to figure out or just fascinated with, that seem to just be people who seem, confidence isn't the right word, but fixated on some vision of their own. They're usually artists or musicians or something, and just with blinders on and almost indifferent to the people around them and what they all think. Laser focused.
There's only a few of them you meet in your life, and in the book, it depends. With Louisa and with me too, a lot of it depends on the eyes. And the other thing is, the reason why there's only so few of them is because, unlike Richard, they're totally integrated. They're not bouncing around in their head. They're not like vibrating. It's just, they are who they are. And I think that's what it is. You look at them, they are exactly what they are. They aren't, there isn't someone watching them in their head. There isn't this voice saying, you're not going to be able to do this or something like that. It's just, they're integrated.
You're right. It's like they're devoid of self-consciousness.
Exactly.
And there are just a few out there, and I think that we all sort of can identify them right away, and the people we can't stop talking about.
Yeah, and sometimes people will go, well, he's an old soul, but that's not what it is, but it's kind of like that,
Yeah.
That kind of.
Yeah. And I guess I've been trying to sort of crack that open for a long time. Like, what is it? Or just fascination with that type of person. And, it's sort of like, and most, the books that I like books also like The Great Gatsby, or even, even On the Road was like this, where there's a charismatic main character that the narrator is trying to understand.
Right. And the other way you can tell too with a book, like the integration is like in Gatsby, and so we beat on boats against the current, born ceaselessly into the past. Why do you know that? Or Metamorphosis, Gregor Samsa woke one morning to find himself, after troubling dreams, to find himself transformed in his bed into a giant cockroach. It's just like, okay, well, yeah, sure, that's what happened. That's exactly what happened in both books.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the other thing is that, the other thing that's good about a book is that when you're done, even one of the reviewers said too, the one who said it was, she was holding her breath. When you're done, you're not really done. I'm done with, you're done, you're done, but the book isn't done, and that's what's good about a book is you're still telling the reader that there's still lots of stuff you can do, like what happens.
Yeah, you mean that the story will continue beyond the last page. Yeah.
Richard's in Paris, and he's in Paris for a reason, and so now what's with everybody, right?
Is that okay for you?
It's the best thing in the world.
All right, good.
Well, a lot of people like their books wrapped up in
I know. I sometimes hear from those people.
Well, when this book is in our book club, it's I say this in every interview. I call it Fight Club because I see them sitting across from each other. Why didn't she do this? Why would she do the tree? I'm not going to spoil it, but why didn't she? Why didn't she?
People. You have a book club and people argue like that?
I got like 5, 6 of them. The nonfiction one, the classics one, fiction one.
Wow.
Yeah. So yes, there is this idea that I like, and I think the readers that I like are the ones who carry the book with them after the book is back.
Yeah.
Like these books.
Each of those books behind you ends before, right? Leave you. Yeah.
Yeah. And I have a love-hate relationship about why do I keep these? My kids aren't going to want them. What am I doing with them? Well, I read them already. What do I need them for?
Otherwise, you would just have to put on. Then you would have to put wallpaper on the walls. It's decor too. It's the best kind of decor of books. And also, somebody walks into that room in your house and they know something about you right away.
Yeah, if you look at every book in my library, you know everything about me. You know who I am.
Yeah, that's right.
I know, it's weird.
Yeah. Whereas wallpaper with chinoiserie or birds or flowers. What's that? No.
Yeah.
Boring. Books are the best house decor.
Well, that makes me feel better.
Oh yeah. And you will look at that. You will. Yeah. I'm also in a book club, by the way, and we fight.
Yeah. Those are good fights, unless you have one person who's really a pain in the ass and talks all the time, which I've actually kicked them out. I have the luxury of doing a lot of stuff. Like there's people who come in and will talk to me for 20 minutes. And my rule is I finally say to them, look, you have 2 minutes. If you can't say it in 2 minutes, then I don't want to hear it. And then,
I'm glad you didn't say that to me.
Oh, me. Oh yeah, I never thought about that. Oh shit, I do the same thing. Damn it, I never thought about that. Shouldn't have said that either.
Nah, it's all good.
Yeah. All right. Well, this was great because it's so nice seeing you, and you're such a nice, kind face.
Oh, so are you. This is fun. I wish you were in my book club. We should have
that would be
like an interstate Zoom club. Except that you might be too smart.
But it's interesting because like Liz Moore and Madeline Meller like comes to our bookstore and and there's all these kids now who love. Well, Circe has been sitting on my shelves for the past. I have no how. It's still like I can't buy enough of them. And now she's coming out with this Galatea, which was a Kindle single. But anyway, so yeah, and I just texted her yesterday. It's so nice to be able to talk to the people who wrote these, because you learn so much more and they become kind of like your friends.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, you've got a great thing going on there.
Yeah. It's been, this is the most fun I've ever had.
Yeah, it's great. One of these days, I'm coming to Exton. I'm going to visit.
That would be great. I wish you would.
How far are you from Philadelphia again? Tell me quick.
Like on a good day, like 30 minutes.
Okay.
You just get on the expressway and you go down there, unless there's an accident, but yeah, 30 minutes.
Yeah.
So yeah, come down here.
That would be fun.
You don't want me to come up there, but you come down here.
You can come up here. It's all right.
All right.
All right. Well, thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, I don't want to go on and on, but it really was nice doing this.
Likewise. Thank you again for having me. And I hope that there's a fourth time.
Yeah. Oh, well, I can ask the last question.
Yeah.
All my questions are the last question. So what do this is a Terry Gross question. So what are you doing now? You have another 20-year-old book that's in the closet.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, I kind of wish I did. Wouldn't that be nice? Be like, hey, look at this. But
are you going to get out of Connecticut? Are you going to go to LA again, or get out of Connecticut and go somewhere else? Where are you going to go?
I've got some stories I've been working on. Animals continue to be a focus for me. And then I've had in my head, it hasn't been in my head for 20 years, but it's been in my head for maybe almost 10 years, another novel. And I don't want to talk too much about the idea. I'm a little superstitious, but it might be, if all goes well, it will be a New York City novel.
Oh, good.
And yeah, we'll see. We may not have seen the end of everybody either from this book.
Well, yeah. And like you said, you said it, so I can say it too. Some of the characters from the Wonder Garden, make their cameos here.
Yeah. I'm glad you noticed that. Yeah. It's funny how ever since the Wonder Garden, I have this urge to revisit and link things.
Well, that's why, first of all, I love short stories anyway, but that's why I liked it. Yeah. And I remember saying, oh, I thought this was a novel. And when I thought this was the second chapter. And
God, no. Yeah, no, a lot of people thought that too, and were sorely disappointed.
No, it's great. I love short stories. They're fun.
Yeah.
Okay, we said goodbye now like 6 times, I guess.
Okay. Yeah. All right. This time for real. All right. Okay. I'm going to go watch all your other videos now, because I think that's cool.
Oh yeah. Last time we talked about the Goon Squad.
Yes. Real quick, very quick. Candy House.
Oh God. Yeah. 2
thumbs up, 3 thumbs up. Amazing. Yeah. Huge fan. I have to reread Goon Squad to really appreciate what she did. I know. Yeah.
I don't have time to reread anything because I'm doing like 3 interviews a week. And I know. It's tough.
I'm a slow reader too, but that would be, yeah.
No, I'm a fast reader. I read your book in 2 hours. Less maybe.
And look, you didn't say that. I'm just kidding.
Well, look how, that's the other reason it's good. Look how much I remembered.
Yeah, no, it's amazing. Yeah, you're a good reader. That's what I mean. You're too smart for a book club.
But, all right, thank you. Well, that's still another goodbye, I think.
Okay. All right.
All right, goodbye.
Happy reading. Happy book selling.
Happy writing.
Oh,
there he is.
All right. Augie, say goodbye. All right.
Okay. He wants you to leave too. All right, bye-bye.
Bye.